President Trump seems to think the Trump administration has given more than enough testimony about Donald Trump.
I let White House counsel McGahn testify. I let everybody testify. I think McGahn was in there for 30 hours. Who ever heard of such a thing? But I said I want everybody to testify.
But now the president seems to be trying to stop everybody from testifying. Donald Trump's refusal to cooperate with congressional investigations is forcing Democrats to examine increasingly aggressive legal options to enforce their oversight authority. House Democrats warn that Trump officials who refuse to comply with subpoenas could be held in contempt of Congress, fined up to $25,000 a day, possibly even jailed. As happened in the Watergate investigation. The threat happened in the Watergate investigation when President Nixon tried to prevent his aides from testifying. Senator Sam Ervin, chairman of the Watergate Investigative Committee, threatened arrest of White House staff if they did not testify to the Watergate Committee. And then they did testify to the Watergate Committee. This week, Donald Trump has stonewalled subpoenas and document demands from committees investigating Trump's tax returns, the 2020 census, the recent firings within the Department of Homeland Security. Tonight, the White House agreed to a Republican proposal to allow Carl Klein, the former head of personnel security, to sit for a voluntary transcribed interview to answer questions about how security clearances were granted to officials like Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump. But that is not what Chairman Elijah Cummings was requesting. He wanted Klein to testify before the House Oversight Committee. And there's also no sign that the Democrats will actually accept this proposal because there is a scheduling conflict that would represent with Attorney General William Barr's testimony on Wednesday. We're back with Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett, Congressman Lloyd Doggett, and Congressman Jared Huffman. And Congressman Doggett, I wanted to ask you about the tax return issue because that's your chairman of Ways and Means. You're in the Ways and Means Committee. Chairman Richie Neal has the absolute legal authority to see any tax return he wants to see. That's written into law very clearly. What is the status tonight of that demand by Chairman Neal?
Well, it's really up to Chairman Neal now that he's been denied not once but twice. Each of these letters is just about running out the clock, as you've been saying. They're trying to delay. This May 6th deadline is phony. I hope that Chairman Neal will move forward expeditiously to get these returns. And whether it's there or someone who refuses to come in front of the Oversight Committee or the Judiciary Committee, I think really the House needs to explore contracting for jail space. We need to send a message that this is not going to be putting people up at the Willard Hotel, that they'll be there with the common criminals arrested if they do not comply with the inherent power of Congress to subpoena records and to subpoena people to come in. And whether it's through arrest and jailing or through daily fines, we intend to enforce these provisions, and we're not going to let them run out the clock.
And so now President Trump is saying he doesn't want Don McGahn to respond to Chairman Nadler's subpoena to testify to the Judiciary Committee, but Donald Trump now wants to publicly testify about Don McGahn's testimony. Let's listen to what the president said today about Don McGahn's testimony.
I never told Don McGahn to fire Mueller. If I wanted to fire Mueller, I would have done it myself. It's very simple. I had the right to. And frankly, whether I did or he did, we had the absolute right to fire Mueller.
So, Congresswoman Plaskett, that's the president of the United States accusing former White House counsel Don McGahn of lying under oath to special counsel Robert Mueller, because the Mueller report says that Don McGahn did indeed tell them that Donald Trump told him to fire Robert Mueller. And so how can Don McGahn now not testify to the Judiciary Committee now that the president is out there repeatedly, this isn't the first time, saying that Don McGahn, in effect, lied to the special counsel?
Well, I'm sure, the committees are going to be asking Attorney McGahn, Mr. McGahn, to give to justify what he said and to really try and firm up those statements. But I want everybody to remember that the president is not speaking under oath when he's talking to the press. And when he answered questions that the special counsel gave him, he only answered the questions related to the Russia investigation and refused to answer any questions related to the obstruction of justice. So we have no statements from the president under oath, written under the investigation that relate to the obstruction of justice. And until he does so, his word can't be taken as being truthful at this point.
And Congressman Huffman, what's so important about what Congressman Plaskett just said is that one of the questions the president obviously would have been asked is, did you call up Don McGahn twice on a weekend and twice tell him to fire the special prosecutor? In other words, he would have been asked to say what he said today under oath.
Well, and the only thing we have from this president under oath are his written answers where he suddenly came down with a terrible case of amnesia every time he was asked a question. This president is not interested in going under oath and in being transparent. He's certainly not interested in being accountable to the rule of law. And I think it's gut check time for the United States Congress. He is testing us. He is trying to see if we have the stomach to do our job and to enforce the law. It's a heck of a moment.
And Congressman Doggett, what about that? The timetable on subpoena and subpoena enforcement, what does that look like?
Well, we need to move forward expeditiously. When the chief of staff for the president says we'll never get the tax returns, we don't need to hear much more. We should be ready to move forward on it. When the president says he'll erect a stone wall here and won't permit anyone to testify, let's get the subpoenas out. Let's set short timetable on them, get them over there, ask them to tell the truth. I believe some of these officials will decide to comply with the subpoenas instead of to comply with a president who is a man of his last word and who lies about everything, and they shouldn't expose themselves to jail time and criminal fines because of a willingness to follow this man.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on the button below for more from The Last Word and the rest of MSNBC.